There comes a moment in life when the old version of you no longer fits. You can feel it. Not through noise, not through drama, but through silence. A subtle shift. A quiet inner resistance to what once felt normal. Conversations you used to enjoy now feel empty. The places you once sought comfort now feel too small. The people you surrounded yourself with begin to echo an outdated rhythm you no longer move to. This is not arrogance, is not rebellion. This is growth. And the greatest transformations rarely begin with explosions. They begin with whispers. A tension not on the outside, but within. You begin to notice your reactions change. Same situations arise, but something inside you no longer plays along. Your responses become calmer, your patience grows deeper, and your urgency for validation begins to fade. This is not a loss, it is a return. A return to yourself, a version of you that you may not fully recognize yet, but one that feels more real than anything you've been taught to be. Outgrowing your old self is not a betrayal. It is a natural unfolding. As the tree must shed its bark to grow stronger, you too must shed identities, habits, and attachments that once served you, but now limit you. But understand, this growth does not always feel good. In fact, it often feels lonely, because the process of becoming demands solitude. It demands that you leave behind the noise long enough to hear your own truth. Not the one the world gave you. The one that lives underneath it all. The one that has always been calling you, even when you weren't ready to listen. And now you are beginning to listen. You are beginning to notice the signals. Small, but powerful. Not always dramatic, but always meaningful. Signals are not just signs of change. They are confirmations that you are awakening. That the old story is no longer yours. That your spirit, your mind, and your discipline are aligning in a way that the old you cannot follow. Not a matter of proving yourself anymore. It is a matter of protecting your peace, of honoring your time, of saying no without guilt, of choosing solitude over superficial noise. These shifts are not just preferences. They are signals. And when you understand them, you no longer question the path. You walk it with clarity. This journey is not about becoming better than others. It is about becoming whole within yourself. Not about escaping the past. It is about outgrowing the parts of you that were never yours to carry in the first place. Expectations, roles, masks. You begin to set them down. Not in anger, but in understanding. Not in rebellion, but in alignment. And as you walk, you will lose some things. Relationships may fade. Old desires may dissolve. But what remains will be real, solid, clear. You do not need to be loud about this change. True growth does not need to announce itself. It is seen in your energy, in your silence, in your decisions, in your refusal to engage in what once drained you. And if you are noticing these subtle changes in your life, then understand, you are not confused, you are evolving. You are not lost. You are simply stepping into space that the old you feared to enter. This speech will guide you through 6 signals, 6 inner confirmations that you've outgrown the old you. Not to inflate your ego, but to anchor your path. Not to celebrate what you've left behind, but to clarify what you're walking toward. Because when you recognize these signals, you stop looking for permission. You stop waiting for the world to understand you, and you begin walking forward. Not because everything is perfect, but because you've seen too much, felt too much, and grown too much to turn back now. So if something within you has been whispering, if you felt a shift but haven't named it, if you've been pulled inward without knowing why, listen closely. These are the signs, and they're not just signs that you're changing. They are proof that you're finally becoming who you were always meant to be. First signal that you've outgrown the old version of yourself is that you begin to lose interest in things that once defined your comfort zone. What used to excite you, pull your attention, or feel important no longer carries the same energy. It's not because you are numb or indifferent. It's because your inner world is shifting, and what used to resonate with you now feels too small for the space you've grown into. This can feel unsettling. You may ask yourself, Why am I not interested anymore? Why does this feel boring now? What changed? The answer is simple: you changed. Your values are evolving. Your awareness is expanding. Your perception is no longer aligned with the habits, environments, and conversations that once kept you engaged. This is the natural unfolding of growth. As your consciousness develops, the mind begins to crave nourishment, not distraction. And most of what the old version of you used to chase was simply distraction in disguise. Endless scrolling, empty conversations, seeking approval, staying busy without purpose. These behaviors were once soothing, but now they feel hollow. You begin to sense when your energy is being drained, and you lose tolerance for wasting it. The mind, once addicted to stimulation, starts craving depth. You no longer wish to talk just to fill the silence. You prefer silence to surface level words. You no longer feel the need to be everywhere with everyone. You would rather be in one place, fully present, than in many places half aware. You are no longer trying to keep up. You are trying to slow down and tune in. And this is where confusion can arise, because as your interests shift, the world around you may not understand. Friends may question why you've changed. People may call you distant, quiet, different. But they do not see that your withdrawal is not a retreat. It is a refinement. You are no longer investing energy where it is not respected. You are no longer offering your time without purpose. This shift is not about rejection. It is about realignment. What begins to matter most to you now is truth, not entertainment, not validation, not comfort. Truth. And truth often reveals itself in stillness. So you seek stillness. You create space in your life where you can hear your own thoughts, observe your patterns, and sit with what is real. In that space, something within you strengthens. You start noticing what no longer fits, not because someone told you, but because you feel it. You may find yourself stepping away from certain environments, not because they are wrong, but because you no longer belong to them. You may begin choosing solitude over noise, not out of loneliness, but because your soul now prefers peace to stimulation. You may no longer need to explain yourself. You realize that true understanding does not come from convincing others, but from embodying your change silently. This is the first signal: disinterest in what no longer grows you. It can be subtle, a quiet pulling away, a silent refusal to engage. But it is powerful, because every time you choose not to go back into the old pattern, you are walking further into your new self. Every time you say no to what once kept you distracted, you are saying yes to your evolution. And this shift does not require permission. It does not need to be explained. It simply needs to be honored. You must learn to trust that your changing interests are not a problem. They are a signpost. They are your soul's way of saying, we are no longer here. We've moved on. In this phase, discomfort is normal. There will be gaps. Things will fall away before new things arrive. But in that space, you are not lost. You are in transition. Honor the transition. Stay in the gap without rushing to fill it. Let the old dissolve and trust that what's real will take its place. The key is to listen. When something that once mattered no longer calls to you, pause. Don't force yourself to return to it. Ask yourself, what is this change revealing? What part of me is growing, and what is it outgrowing? When you begin asking those questions, the disinterest turns into direction. The silence becomes insight. The confusion becomes clarity. You are not the same. You were not meant to be. And the first proof of your evolution is that the old world no longer feels like home. Not because you're ungrateful for where you've been, but because now you see where you're going. Second signal that you've outgrown the old you is a heightened sensitivity to energy. Specifically, a deeper awareness of how people, spaces, and conversations affect your inner state. Where once you could sit in environments filled with conflict, noise, gossip, or shallow distraction without noticing much, you now find that even brief exposure to these things disturbs your peace. It's not because you've become weak, because your system has become refined. Your spirit has become more precise in what it allows in. What used to be tolerable is no longer tolerable. Not because it changed, but because you did. You begin to feel the weight of unspoken tension. You pick up on dishonesty even when no words are said. You sense when people are acting out of fear, insecurity, or ego. You feel when someone's presence is nourishing and when it is draining. This is not judgment, it is clarity. It is a form of energetic intelligence. And once it activates, you can't turn it off. At first, this heightened sensitivity can be uncomfortable. It might make you question why certain relationships suddenly feel heavy, why conversations you used to enjoy now feel forced, or why certain environments trigger a sense of inner disharmony. The world hasn't changed, but your awareness has. You're no longer able to lie to yourself about what feels right and what doesn't. The noise you once silenced with distraction is now unmistakably loud. Signal often leads to an important realization. Not everyone can walk with you into your next chapter. Not because they are bad, not because they need to be cut off, but because the resonance has changed. You begin to notice when people are speaking from wounds instead of wisdom, when they seek connection only through complaining, gossip, or comparison. You begin to feel how your body contracts in certain rooms and softens in others. And you learn to trust that response, not as a judgment, but as a compass. This kind of sensitivity is not emotional fragility. It is the maturation of your energetic boundaries. Trained yourself to protect your peace not with force, but with presence. And that means sometimes stepping away, not to isolate yourself, but to recalibrate. You choose to no longer engage in conversations that shrink you. You no longer pretend to be interested in things that disturb your focus. You're not being rude. You're being responsible with your energy. This is where silence becomes your ally. You realize you don't need to explain every decision. You don't need to justify why something doesn't feel right anymore. You simply honor the feeling. You bow to it. Because you understand now that your peace is not something you can sacrifice for the comfort of others. And sometimes this means releasing what was once familiar. It may mean walking away from friendships that no longer feel aligned. It may mean spending more time alone, choosing solitude over superficial connection. But you are not lonely. You are becoming selective. You are curating your environment with care because you finally recognize how sacred your attention is. There will be moments where your clarity makes others uncomfortable. They may say you've changed, that you're distant. You've become too serious. But deep inside, you know you're not creating distance out of pride. You're creating space for clarity. You are not rejecting anyone. You are returning to yourself. Shift will ask you to trust yourself more deeply than ever. Because while others may not understand your silence, your stillness, or your refusal to participate in chaos, you understand. And that's enough. You no longer look for validation in shared dysfunction. You no longer bend yourself to fit into spaces you've outgrown. You begin to value quality over quantity. In people, in conversations, in time. You realize that even one moment of alignment is more nourishing than hours of empty noise. And so you protect that alignment. You become less reactive, more intentional. You no longer fight to be heard. You choose to listen. Through listening, you know where to stay and where to gently walk away. This signal marks a profound inner shift from tolerance to discernment. You no longer tolerate what drains you simply because it is familiar. You no longer stay just to avoid discomfort. You trust the discomfort. You trust the inner contraction. You trust the pull away, because it is always followed by a deeper return. You are not here to prove your growth to anyone. You are here to honor it. And if something no longer feels right, it's not a failure. It's a signal. It's the sound of your soul choosing harmony over history, peace over pressure, presence over performance. And that choice, that quiet, private decision, is what makes the new you real. The third signal that you've outgrown the old you is that your desire for external validation begins to dissolve. Not that you no longer care about others, it's that you no longer seek yourself in them. Approval used to feel like oxygen. Praise once felt necessary for self-worth. You used to move according to how you were perceived. But now, a quiet detachment forming. A sense that your path is no longer up for negotiation. You are beginning to lead yourself from within. This shift does not happen through pride. It happens through pain, through the realization that no amount of applause can fill the silence left by self-neglect. There comes a point when chasing approval becomes exhausting, and in that fatigue, something powerful is born. The need to stop performing and start aligning. You begin to act, speak, and live, not for the sake of recognition, but because it is what feels right, regardless of who is watching. You begin to understand that true self-respect cannot be outsourced, that when your value is determined by how others respond to you, you will forever be enslaved to their opinions. Realization breaks a chain that may have quietly held you for years. At first it feels strange. You notice yourself holding back from explaining your decisions. You begin to walk away from conversations where your truth doesn't fit. You stop trying to make everyone understand you. And though part of you still wants to be liked, a deeper part of you knows that being liked is not the same as being true. You used to seek feedback to feel safe. Now you seek silence to feel clear. You used to post, share, speak, or move with the thought, will they see me? Now the question has changed. It's not, will they see me? It's, do I see myself clearly in this? And if the answer is no, you adjust. You no longer force alignment with others just to avoid standing alone. This change doesn't mean arrogance. It means ownership. You own your path. You own your voice. You accept the solitude that sometimes comes with that ownership. In that solitude, you find something stronger than popularity, peace. The old version of you may have needed others to reflect your value. The new you looks inwards. The old version of you waited to be told, you're enough. The new you already knows. This doesn't mean you reject connection. It means your connection is no longer desperate. It is no longer built on needing approval, but on shared resonance. Your self-worth no longer inflates or deflates based on someone's reaction. You become steady, quietly powerful. You no longer try to prove your worthiness by overgiving, over-explaining, or overextending. You give from presence, not performance, and people will notice. Some may admire the strength. Others may question the shift, but you will not shrink to be understood. You will not compromise clarity for comfort. You will walk your path, not to impress, but to express what is real within you. You'll start seeing how often people move based on who is watching, how they live their entire lives reacting to expectation. You'll have compassion for this, but you won't join it. You'll recognize that you were once caught in that same pattern. But now you have chosen something different. You have chosen self-leadership. And this is not easy, because it means letting go of the need to explain your evolution. It means being okay when others don't get it. It means sitting with the discomfort of disappointing people who only love the old version of you. It is in this very discomfort that you grow roots. You learn to stand tall without needing to be held up. You stop chasing applause. You start cultivating alignment. You stop reacting to opinions. You start listening to intuition. You stop trying to be everything for everyone. You start becoming exactly what you were meant to be. This signal is not loud. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need attention. It just shows up in how you carry yourself, in how you say no without guilt, in how you speak less but with more weight, in how your presence begins to feel more grounded, even in silence. And when you reach this point, you realize something freeing. That validation is a moving target, but truth is still, and you are learning to live still, to lead from that stillness, to choose what's true over what's popular. And that choice is the surest sign that the old you, the one who needed to be seen in order to feel real, has been left behind, not with anger, not with resentment, but with quiet gratitude, because that version of you got you here. You are now ready for more. The fourth signal that you've outgrown the old version of yourself is that you begin choosing long-term alignment over short-term comfort. You no longer move according to urgency or impulse. You pause, you evaluate, you ask deeper questions. The old you may have been easily pulled by what felt good in the moment. A distraction, a temporary fix, a shortcut, or the temptation to postpone what truly matters. But now, a different voice inside you speaks. One that is quieter, but stronger. One that reminds you what brings ease now often brings regret later, and what requires discipline now leads to freedom. This shift doesn't happen suddenly. Unfolds as you begin noticing the consequences of your choices. You become more aware of how the small decisions you once dismissed have shaped the quality of your life. How repeatedly choosing comfort over clarity only delayed your growth. And through this realization, a quiet seriousness begins to take root inside you. Not a harsh pressure, but a quiet sense of responsibility. You begin to understand that your life is not random. It is built choice by choice, habit by habit, day by day. When you begin to choose alignment, your relationship with time changes. You no longer ask, what feels good right now? You ask, will this nourish my future self? You don't just think about what a decision brings. You consider what it costs. You start to look further. You develop the discipline to sit in temporary discomfort if it means staying true to your deeper values. You begin to respect what is difficult when it's necessary, and that means your priorities begin to shift. You might spend less time seeking distraction and more time building inner clarity. You start to appreciate simplicity. You begin to prioritize structure, discipline, stillness, and daily rituals. Not because someone told you to, but because you felt the cost of inconsistency. You know what it's like to drift, to delay, to deny your own path. And now you choose not to do it anymore. This shift will challenge you. The world often rewards urgency and comfort. It tells you to chase what's shiny, to indulge now and worry later. But when you've outgrown the old version of yourself, those rewards no longer feel satisfying. They feel hollow. You begin to crave something more enduring, a life that is not just exciting in moments, but meaningful in its direction. So you stop rushing into decisions. You stop entertaining people and places that pull you off your path. You say no, not out of arrogance, but out of clarity. You recognize the cost of scattering your energy. You know that alignment cannot survive where there is constant compromise. And with that understanding, a calm maturity begins to emerge. You learn to delay gratification not out of fear, but out of purpose. You begin to track your habits, not with obsession, but with awareness. You notice which choices bring clarity and which create confusion. You begin to treat your time as sacred, not because you're in a hurry, but because you know what's at stake when you live without intention. And slowly, your life becomes quieter, but more powerful, more focused, more grounded. Start to walk slower, but with more certainty. You no longer seek momentum in chaos. You find it in consistency. You understand now that mastery is not about intensity, but about repetition. That transformation is not about massive leaps, but about invisible commitments kept day after day. This signal isn't dramatic. It's steady. It's seen in how you wake, how you move, how you choose to say no to old temptations. Seen in your posture when no one is watching. In your patience when things don't go as planned. In your decision to return to what matters, even when it's uncomfortable. The old version of you may have loved intensity. The new version respects discipline. The old you wanted fast results. The new you wants lasting results. The old you followed feelings. The new you follows truth. You are not perfect, but you are consistent. You are not rigid. You are rooted. You are not finished, but you are focused. And that quiet focus is what separates who you were from who you're becoming. So when you notice yourself choosing structure over chaos, peace over excitement, clarity over distraction, know this: you're not boring. You're becoming unshakable. You're not slow. You're becoming sustainable. You're not disconnected. You're deeply aligned. Because the one who walks in alignment may walk alone for a while, but never walks in circles. And if you've started choosing the long road, the quiet road, the road without shortcuts, you've already left the old version of yourself behind, not with fanfare, but with grace. Growth is not always loud, more often subtle, quiet. It doesn't always show up in dramatic breakthroughs or visible achievements. Sometimes it reveals itself in what no longer resonates, in the silence you now value, in the conversations you no longer chase, In the decisions you make without needing to explain them, you begin this journey not with answers, but with questions. Why don't I feel the same anymore? Why does this space feel too small? Why do I crave silence more than stimulation? Questions aren't signs of confusion. They are signals of awakening. Signals that something within you is shifting, evolving, expanding. You are not losing yourself. You are shedding layers that were never truly you. First signal appears when your interests change. What once excited you now feels distant. The noise you used to crave becomes irritating. You no longer reach for distractions that used to comfort you. Your mind has grown hungry for depth, for truth, for alignment. This shift may not be understood by others, but it doesn't need to be. You no longer belong to your past preferences. You've outgrown them, and that's enough. Comes the second signal, an increased sensitivity to energy. You can no longer tolerate environments or people who drain your spirit. You feel it in your body, in your breath. You know when something doesn't sit right, and you respect that knowing. You create space, not out of arrogance, but out of necessity. You've realized that your peace is not negotiable, that protecting your energy is a form of wisdom, not isolation. The third signal is even quieter, but even more powerful. Your need for validation dissolves. The old you lived for approval, always seeking reflection from others to feel worthy. But now your worth is no longer outsourced. It lives within. You don't perform to be seen, you don't explain to be understood. You don't chase recognition. You walk in truth. You act in silence. You stand firm, not because of applause, but because you know who you are without it. And finally, you begin choosing long-term alignment over short-term comfort. You are no longer seduced by temporary ease. You see the cost of compromise. You choose discipline over distraction. You walk away from the easy path and begin walking the true path. Slowly, steadily, without needing to rush. Because you have come to understand the right path is not the one that feels good right now, the one that honors who you are becoming. These signals are not steps on a checklist. They are shifts in your internal compass. Together, they point to one truth: you've